And welcome, everyone. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to spotlight my video real quick. So we are going to talk about the immune system today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kimber, and I'm the program coordinator at the Roseville HPE site. And I'm just so glad we're able to get together today and talk about this, something that is so applicable in our life today. So today we are going to learn about the different parts of our body that form the immune system, and then the steps we can take to promote a healthy immune system. So just a few housekeeping items before we begin. As I mentioned, this will be recorded. So if you have to jump at all during the presentation, don't worry, I'm going to send it out in an email later so you can catch up on anything you missed. And then if you have any questions as we go through this presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat box. I'm going to have Quincy monitoring the chat box for me. And then at the end, there will be plenty of time for us to go through those questions. So definitely put them in there as we go through. I know a lot of you submitted really great questions on your registration. So some of them will be answered in the presentation. For the ones that aren't, I will email you individually and with answers or helpful links to help you answer those questions. And then lastly, just as a reminder, this information is for educational purposes only and should not be interpreted as medical advice. So we are going to get started with a true/false question to test our knowledge. True or false, coughing and sneezing when you have a cold are signs the immune system is not working well. Go ahead and put your answers or your thoughts in the chat box. I see some false, fake news, false. You are correct. The correct answer is false. So many of the symptoms of illnesses such as coughs, sneezes, and even fevers are actually caused by the immune system doing its job, which is to me very comforting, knowing that my body is just doing what it's made to do. Great job. So the immune system is truly a system, and that's a huge part of what we're going to talk about today. It's very complex, and it's made up of several organs and features. These can include bone marrow, bowel, lymph nodes, mucous membranes in the nose, throat, and bladder, the skin, spleen, the thymus, which is an organ near the heart where special T cells mature, and the tonsils found in the back of the throat. So some of these may sound familiar to you, and you may even have gotten used to checking for swollen lymph nodes or checking your tonsils for signs of inflammation when you feel like you might be getting sick. Over the last year, we have obviously heard a ton about immunity and antibodies and how antibodies can fight infection. And while antibodies are a very important part of the immune system, it's important to note that they're just one piece of the puzzle. So today we'll talk about all the other parts that kind of come alongside the antibodies to help support our bodies. Now, when we talk about immunity, there are two main types, and it's important to distinguish them before we go any further. So the first is passive immunity. This occurs when a person receives antibodies that they did not produce themselves. For example, a newborn baby receives some immunity from the mother, or an antibody treatment may be used for certain diseases. Protection is immediate in passive immunity, but only lasts for weeks or months. The second is active immunity. This is created when a person recovers from an infection or creates an immune response to a vaccine. So it helps the immune system fight disease in the future, and it develops over time and usually lasts longer than passive immunity. How long it lasts depends on the disease. So some diseases create lifelong immunity while others do not. All right, so we are going to do a few more knowledge checks here to kind of dispel common myths about the immune system. So a lot of fact or fiction is going to keep us engaged here. So fact or fiction, this is the first one. Not getting enough sleep may negatively affect the immune system. So go ahead and put what you think in the chat box. Lots of fact, 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 fact. This is indeed a fact. So this is a fact. During sleep, the body makes and releases proteins called cytokines that target infections. So if you're not getting enough sleep, this may limit the body's immune response. For example, chronic sleep loss may cause the body to create less of a response to a flu shot, making the vaccine less effective. It's also important to note that good sleep is just important for overall health and well-being. All right, number two, fact or fiction. Certain dietary supplements have been proven to boost the immune system and fight off diseases. I know this was a hot topic in our questions and our registration, so we'll definitely take time to go over that. I see mixed answers, fact, fiction, both. So this is actually fiction. While many dietary supplements may claim to support immunity, immunity is so complex that it's very hard to study. So there are no supplements that are proven to boost immunity and fight diseases. It is true, however, that certain nutrients do play important roles in supporting the immune system. Some examples would be protein, which is important for healing and recovery, vitamin A, which helps protect against infections by keeping organs such as the skin, stomach, intestines, and respiratory system healthy, vitamin C, really common, which supports the forming of antibodies, and then zinc, which may help wounds heal. There are also many other nutrients that may help support a healthy immune system. And the key word there is support. So it's not necessarily boosting the immune system, but it's supporting it and helping it function properly. So some other nutrients may be vitamins B6, B12, folate, and iron. So even though many nutrients support the immune system, that does not mean any will boost the immune system or boost immunity. In fact, it is actually illegal in the United States for a dietary supplement to claim that it can treat, prevent, or cure a disease or condition. So the best way to get enough key nutrients is from a nutritious eating pattern rather than a dietary supplement. Like I mentioned, I saw a lot of questions on the registration asking what foods benefit the immune system. So I did want to touch on that. As we've been discussing a balanced eating pattern, the best thing for not only our immune system, but our overall, all our body systems is a balanced pattern of eating. So not eating too much of one thing, but everything in moderation. That is my favorite life motto, really. So some foods that are rich in the nutrients mentioned previously would be citrus fruits, red bell peppers, broccoli, garlic, ginger, spinach, yogurt, almonds. And I'm going to include a full list of these foods and the nutrients they contain in the email I send out after, so you can kind of look back and look at that list. If you are thinking about taking a dietary supplement, it is always best to talk to your doctor first before taking it. Everything affects everybody's body differently. So next one, fact or fiction? Stress can suppress the body's immune response. Christy, chocolate, garlic, and cheese. All my favorite foods. Fact, 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 fact. You are all correct. This is a fact. So the body and mind are quite connected, as I'm sure all of you know. Several studies have found that stress, as well as loneliness and depression, can all affect the immune response in a negative way. It's just another reason it is important to use strategies to cope with stress in a healthy way and stay connected with others. It's also important to, if you know, stress comes in life, there's no avoiding it completely. So knowing that you're going through a stressful time in life, maybe it's a project at work or family or personally, just kind of being more aware of the foods you're eating, the sleep you're getting, and trying to increase all those other things because of the stress you're put under, supporting your body however you can. All right, next one, fact or fiction. Physical activity on a regular basis may help support a healthy immune system. Lots of facts in there. You guys are correct. Again, regular physical activity is linked to a lower risk of both chronic conditions such as heart disease and infectious diseases such as respiratory infections or colds. So some evidence shows that regular exercise may even help limit or slow the aging of the immune system as we get older, which I found super interesting. It's great in the long term as well as the short term. If you can find things you enjoy, you turn movement and activity into something you look forward to. So it becomes more of a gift rather than a chore. And in turn, by doing something you enjoy, it'll boost your emotional well-being too. I know this was something that actually made me get into the field that I'm in, because I totally had a mindset shift when it came to physical activity after coming out of sports my whole life growing up, and having to choose to be physically active rather than just doing it as part of my regular scheduled routine. So finding activities that I actually love rather than forcing myself to get to the gym 6 days a week and do something that I don't necessarily like. So it's super important to find something that you enjoy. It doesn't have to be running a marathon if you hate running. Another fact or fiction, last one here. Taking antibiotics for a cold or flu is a good way to help the immune system fight off infection. Fact or fiction? I see a fact in there. Some fictions. This was one that I wasn't sure about either. So this is actually fiction. It's a little tricky. I feel like we asked the question in a tricky way, but colds and the flu are actually caused by viruses, and antibiotics do not work against viral infections. So they are only effective against infections caused by bacteria, like strep throat or a urinary tract infection. So we're going to spend the next couple of minutes talking about vaccines and their effect on immunity. I know we have heard more about vaccines in the past year than probably in the last 5 years. So I just want to preface this slide by reminding you that this is meant for educational purposes only. I am by no means an expert on vaccines, but I am going to have Quincy put the link to the CDC's website in the chat box, just in case you have any further questions about the COVID vaccine specifically or vaccinations in general. So vaccines are an important tool to support the immune system. Vaccines help the body create an immune response to a disease. So they are made in all different ways, but they basically show the body the pathogen that causes the disease, so that if your body encounters the virus or the disease in the future, it can recognize it and fight it off. Vaccines exist for many diseases, and they protect individuals and the community from outbreaks of preventable diseases by creating herd immunity. Vaccines are tested for safety, and they're routinely monitored by government health agencies. Like we mentioned before, how long a vaccine protects varies by the type of vaccine. So some require multiple doses, and some, like the flu shots, are given annually because they all change. So when it comes to the immune system, balance is critical. There are so many parts to the immune system, as we have been talking about, that work together. So it's truly a system and not just one thing that helps us fight off disease and infection. And just like anything else with the immune system, there can be too much of a good thing. So if the immune system works too hard, it can lead to other problems such as overreactions and autoimmune diseases, which is where the body mistakes its own cells for an invader and it attacks itself. The concept of immune boosters is flawed because of how the immune system works in a highly connected way. Rather than trying any one thing to boost immunity, it's best to focus on a healthy lifestyle that supports overall good health, including a healthy immune system. Now, I know that can feel overwhelming, knowing that you want to support your overall health. So we're going to go over some practical ways we can do that. So if we shift our thinking from boosting the immune system to supporting the immune system, what can we do to help that? There are many lifestyle steps that can help our bodies, including our immune system, be healthy. They include choosing a nutritious eating pattern. So one that is rich in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean protein, and healthy fats. While there are nutrients that play important roles in immunity, it's a balanced eating pattern overall that matters most. Another one is being physically active on a regular basis. So again, this doesn't necessarily need to include high intensity exercise, but looking for forms of movement that you enjoy. Recent studies are actually showing how beneficial consistent low intensity movement is for our metabolism and our overall well-being. So again, if you don't love HIIT workouts and high intensity routines, just go on a nice calm walk or do a yoga class or a Pilates class, something more low key. Aiming for about 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep each night. So I know this can be hard and not always realistic, but doing your best to create a restful sleeping place. So maybe turning off electronics before bedtime, taking a book to your room instead. I know a lot of people will keep their electronics out of their room during nighttime. So if that's something that is realistic for you, you can try that. Finding ways to relax and manage stress the best you can. So stress may also negatively impact the body and immune system. So taking time out to unwind is very important. Staying connected with friends and family. I'm sure many of us have noticed over the last year and a half how isolation and loneliness has a huge impact on overall well-being. So keeping those connections with friends and family and coworkers strong is important, even if that has to be a virtual connection over the phone, a text sent here or there, or a phone call. Practicing good hand hygiene. So according to experts, clean hands are one of the best ways to prevent the spread of infectious disease. Washing with soap and water, scrubbing for at least 20 seconds. So maybe singing happy birthday, as I'm sure many of us have done. Hand sanitizers containing at least 60% alcohol are another option if soap and water aren't available, as long as your hands aren't visibly dirty. And then lastly, maybe it's time to talk to your doctor about the recommended vaccination schedule for you and your family. So what will you do next? Here are just a few ideas, and then we can kind of brainstorm some more together. But one of them would be planning a nutritious meal. So just looking up a recipe that looks and sounds good to you and planning that for the next week's dinner. Reaching out to a friend or a loved one, going for a short walk or long walk. If you have a good podcast or a book on tape you want to listen to, talking with your doctor about vaccinations for you and your family. So I want to give you all a minute or two to think about what your next step will be going forward. Now, as you can probably know, the next step is going to look a little different for everyone. So what works for me might not work for you. It just depends on which area you need to put more emphasis on. So that's exactly what I want you to do, is think about one area that you could work on for the next week or two to create a habit in, rather than picking 2, 3, 4 areas that you want to improve in your life. So if you're comfortable with it, go ahead and put it in the chat box. Feel free to unmute yourself to talk about it. Just picking one thing, maybe it's sleep, maybe it's physical activity that you can put, or that you can work on and focus on. Dog walks with Oakley Moore. Trying to get to bed by 9:30. That's always tricky to have a consistent bedtime. Making a plan to schedule at least 30 minutes of physical activity. That's awesome. Incorporating more physical activity. I know for me, something I've been working on just in the past few months is getting my own workout routine in throughout the week. Since I teach so much, just making sure that I prioritize a couple workouts for myself. Reading a book versus looking at YouTube videos. Yes, that's a hard one to have self-discipline for. Play more golf, walking most mornings. Regular sleep schedule. That makes a huge difference for yourself. These are all such great ideas. Thank you all for sharing. And we'll have some more time too towards the end. And as your fitness center team, we would all love to help you stay accountable to whatever goal you would like, whether it's physical activity or sleep or reading. We would love to help you stay accountable and reach that goal. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would love to help you, even match you with another employee that's working on the same goal. So we will have a few minutes for questions. So I'm going to stay on for a bit, but if you have to go, thank you so much for joining us today. As a reminder, just for joining, you're entered into the Roseville's Global Wellness Challenge raffle, thanks to our wellness ambassadors. So we'll be drawing names and sending out emails to notify the winners over the next week or so. But if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves, put it in the chat box. If you want to reach out after, I'm going to have Quincy put my email in the chat box as well. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kimber. What's the is the Roseville site back open yet at all for exercise classes, or is it still just going to be online for now?
Great question. So it is still online for now. I will say there's progress being made towards opening, but we do not have an official date yet. So once we get that date, we will definitely announce it to the site as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kimber, this is Chris. Just to kind of like on, what am I trying to say? Trail onto that, I guess.
Yeah.
I was happy to hear that even when it does open back up on site, you guys will continue to do the video part, because I live in Woodland and probably won't be back on site. So I was really happy to hear that's going to continue. Those classes
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, we will still keep a full schedule virtually, as well as do on-site programming. So
cool.
if you guys are far away, I know a lot of people have moved too. So this will still be available to you. That's a great
Awesome.
point.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
I have a silly one. My parents used to always tell me, get outside, get some sunshine and fresh air. And, you know, I don't know if it like boosts the immune system or helps it out or whatever, but it does wonders for your mental health as well. Even 10 or 15 minutes fresh air and sunshine.
Yeah. I think that's how it supports the immune system, is benefiting your emotional health. And just kind of, I mean, it just brings you into a better mood, really. So then your body is ready to tackle the rest of your day. Yeah, it's amazing what a little sunlight will do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the webinar. It was really good. Or
You're
the
welcome,
thank you.
Chris.
presentation. Yeah. I'll talk to you later. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
I wanted to say one thing too, Kimber, that I can't remember the guy, but he's like head of CNBC or somebody in health department. He said the best thing that you can do is find somebody that you can really get into someone that you know well enough that you can talk truly with, like authentically with, and go for a brisk walk with them.
So I love that idea.
Combination of that connection with another person and stimulating your mind with, something that's, interesting and deep for conversation, and then getting outside and walking.
Yeah, I love that. I think, yeah, that would be so beneficial on all fronts,
Right.
especially when we're just dealing with a lot of heavy things in the world. So having someone that you can confide in and go through that with is amazing.
Yeah, I liked that one a lot.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Well, if you guys come up with any questions after, feel free to reach out. If you asked a question on the registration that did not get answered, I will reach out to you with an answer or some resources to get your answer. But thank you so much for joining me today.